Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Mom and I are really excited that you can join us for another week. And we're super excited today. We have Jackie Lapin on with us. She has been a lifelong traveler seeking to experience history through the world's cities, villages, castles, landmarks, nature, and books. A Southern California native, she first began a deep exploration of the history of her state and the people who shaped it. Ignited by a trip to the California missions in third grade as a college student, she created her own field trips to explore the historic land and cityscapes of California. As an adult, she began to travel for work and pleasure, accompanied by her cameras, always more than one, to document for herself and somewhere in the recesses of her mind so she could share the pictures and stories with others. And when she couldn't travel, she read historic novels, historical chronicles, and biographies so she would better understand what she was seeing. It was her escape and her education. Photography gave her a sense of artistry and expression in contrast to the particular dedication to her professional life. Jackie marked out an illustrious career as a serial pioneer, initially as one of the world's first woman sports writer, writing for the Detroit Free Press, Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, and Associated Press, breaking press box barriers. She then built and ran over the course of 20 years one of the two largest sports special events cable TV public relation firms in America, with a world-class client list. Her next move was to write two internationally best-selling personal growth books, one of which was awarded the Best Spiritual Book of the Year at the International New Age Trade Show. Finding herself drawn to the leaders who were committed to making the world a better place, she branded her agency Conscious Media Relations and began helping them market their books and messages through the media. Ultimately, the company became a leader in podcast radio tours for experts, offering them to 9,000 podcasts and radio shows. She then created and sold Speaker Trinity, a company providing speaking podcasts and summit leads monthly to speakers seeking virtues. So, welcome, Jackie. We're happy to have you with us. And we're
I'm delighted to
excited,
be.
and we're excited because you've given us so many wonderful guests on our podcast. So, speaking of conscious media, so I thought I'd throw that plug in there for that because it was been wonderful relationship to have with you. So,
Well, thank you. I'm so delighted. And what's really exciting is that, while I continue to do the podcast tours, we're on the crest of something exciting and new, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm just thrilled to be at this phase of my life when I'm launching something exciting and new for my last chapter. I mean, that's what's really, when you get here, you want to do what you love and what you're passionate about. And I've cut everything else out. I'm just doing what's fun.
that's
Well, sure,
go
you're
ahead.
busy by your biography. You're getting lost with you. Good.
You are very busy. And so, how did you, like, besides your love, obviously, of history and places, and I love that you took yourself on all these field trips to, discover what's local and then kind of expand it out from there. So, what inspired that love of the history and exploring all these places?
Well, I think you touched on some of my early history with history, essentially, in my youth. But my father had wanderlust, and I got the gene. That was one thing that occurred. But when I wasn't out, exploring, I did dig into historic novels and history. I was just drawn to it. Then, when I finally got out of college, in my late 20s, I had the opportunity I took a cruise around the Caribbean, and I took my camera and it lit a fire under me. And then a couple of years later, I had an opportunity to go to Europe. Because I'd finished one set of books that written, and I really wanted to see the world. And I had a cousin who said, "Well, come with us." My boyfriend and I are part of a group of architectural students seeing Europe. Well, I went over with them. And on the very first day, I said, "I am leaving these people. They are ugly Americans. I do not want to be a part of this group." And for the first time in my life, I just decided to do something incredibly spontaneous. I took off for the next 6 weeks on my own, deciding day to day, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go next? What train am I going to take? And when I could, I found people that I knew, an old boyfriend or people that I met on the trip who let me stay with them or offered me an opportunity to just explore. But a lot of the time I was on my own and made friends along the way. And what it did for me is it helped me grow as a person. It taught me confidence. It taught me independence. It taught me how to really rely on myself to find a path forward, whatever the challenges I might meet. I really came away feeling much more of an adult who could handle life in that way. And so I believe that travel is spiritually growthful for most people. You get to know the world and the people in it in such a way that you really open up. So that was my first experience. And then after that, it was like no holds barred. I was going somewhere every year. If it was business or vacation or whatever, I was off and running.
So do you have a favorite place that you've been that you just like holds, I don't know, some kind of dear memory to you or just calls you back all the time?
Well, I think that for me has always been Bruges, Belgium. And actually, before I even went, I had a poster in my house, beautiful poster, of the walls and the swan and the canals. It's like a little mini Amsterdam with these big, tall houses with the winches on top and these beautiful canals with swans in them. So it's picture perfect. But there are so many other places. There's a wonderful little fairy tale village that I was in last year. It's Český Krumlov in the Czech Republic, and there's a lovely little place called Anansi in France that's just charming. There are so many lovely places that you can discover when you're traveling.
And so how do you decide on where you're going to go? If you're going to go somewhere every year, do you just kind of like grab the map, kind of like we used to when we were kids, spin the globe and where you land? Or do you have a way of deciding where you're going?
For much of my career, I was blessed with the opportunity to travel. I was part of an international network of public relations agencies, and once a year we'd meet internationally, and a year we'd meet on somewhere of the American continent. And so I would generally hook a trip to one of those trips. And that was one way to take advantage of it. But it was a lot of times it was an opportunistic. But sometimes, for example, I had a girlfriend and we both wanted to go to Spain or we wanted to get away. And so we picked St. Martin's in the Caribbean. So sometimes it was that. But a lot of times there was part of me that just said, okay, there are places I want to see. Like in 2023, the summer of 2023, I made a bucket list of those cities that I wanted to photograph that I had not been to yet. And so I planned a 9-week trip around Europe that was life changing, so amazing and incredible. And what I really loved about it was that I encountered angels everywhere, people who were so willing to guide me, or, when I looked lost, or when they'd step in and haul my big suitcase somewhere. People are kind everywhere if you just give them the chance to be. And if you're kind to them, I mean, part of it is being a good human citizen and being open and not closed-minded about what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. And for me, I go to everything. I'm awestruck by it all. And I love to, absorb it. When I'm photographing things, I'm photographing everything. I'm the buildings, the people, the animals, the windows, the doorknobs, the stained glass. I mean, I'm getting it all. And because it tells a story. And I love to tell the story about where I've been.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree with you. I think that it really does tell the story when because those to me are very intimate pictures, right? Because there's a reason you're taking them of that window or that person or that pigeon that's in the square, right? Whatever it is, it's because it's intimate for you. And when you look back, you're able to relive and retell these stories. So I think that's really wonderful. And I know you love the history of these places. So do you read in advance about the history of them or do you
I
learn as you're
abs
going?
I absolutely do. So, for example, on our website, thehistorictraveler.com, and that's THE, and it's one L in traveler. If you go to the website, you're going to discover a whole directory of insight guides. They are the best guides for people who love history. Then I'll go find a nonfiction book and a fiction book so that I really have all of it covered. But a lot of times I've also read a lot of other fiction books that, those historic novels that bring context to it. I had the pleasure today of doing an interview for our magazine, our 80-page magazine, the Historic Traveler magazine, with Tony Riches. And so one of the things that I love to do, the reason that the Historic Traveler blog is so unique is it's not just a travel blog with pictures and photos, which I'm thrilled to bring forward, but it has a book recommendation or several books with every blog because I want you to have the opportunity to read before you go, or if something just intrigues you, or you really want to explore this place from a different perspective, or somebody who was vital to this area. I'm going to give you a biography or an autobiography of that person. So every blog is an experience. We say that we marry your travel to the books that make history come alive. And so that's really what the goal of it. And it's why I also, if you become a member of our membership group, our community, you actually get the world's largest directory of historic novels, mysteries, history books by localities. So you can pick a city or you can pick a country or you can pick a state and you'll be able to find the books that are aligned with that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's really, I love that. That's a genius idea, really, right? Because then and I love that you do the fiction and nonfiction because I think it gives you a little bit of, because I think in nonfiction or in fiction, there's always a thread of truth.
Yeah.
So I think
Exactly.
that's a great thing. So how about when you're traveling then with the language barriers with the different countries that you go to? How do you deal with that?
The only place that I have had challenges have been in Asia. In China and Japan, most people speak English, but you certainly can't read the signs, and I couldn't read the menus. But China was more difficult at the time. There still were not a lot of people that spoke English. And if I would get lost, you're in trouble. But fortunately, I had an experience where I was supposed to take a tour of the hutongs, which is the little alleyways that were where the Chinese lived before the modern world came. And the taxi driver took me on a long ride and dropped me after the tour left. And so I really was very, very lost. But I walked down to the corner where I thought that that's where the tour left from. And there was this young man who was basically responsible for the little rickshaws they used. And he looked at me and I tried to explain to him that I was late for the tour and he got it. He understood. And so since he couldn't speak to me in English, he walked across the street, took money out of his pocket, which was, really challenging for somebody in, a country that didn't have a lot of money, and then paid the vendor there to make a phone call to his head office to put me on the phone with somebody that spoke English so that I could get somebody out there to give me a private tour. And they did. And it was wonderful. So people, you can make yourself known by all kinds of sign language. And now today, of course, in today's world, which wasn't when I had then, you have the telephone apps that you can use. On your phone, you can tell somebody, translate this.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's really a big difference. So, but I find that in most places around the world, they speak English.
that's amazing. And so you've been doing this for many years, so you've always been interested in the photography part of it as well. Is the photography more than the history and the visiting, or it's right up there equal with each other?
For me, it's all three: history, travel, and the books. They're all, I mean, history and photography and the books. It's all one. It's part of my living experience of how I know the world and how I imagine life must have been in those countries. And, everybody, and I think today, and with as much pressure and difficulty as there is in the world, people love an escape. They don't want to sit there and hear the news all day long. They want to run away to something that's more pleasant. And for me, that has always been this. It's always been history. And so I want to offer other people an opportunity to immerse themselves if they love history or they love travel in a place, a book, a meeting like we do. We do group meetings of our members. We have book clubs, a way to experience life away from the stress. Another thing that we have is that we have the first directory of historic TV dramas and where you can see them going all the way back to Roots.
Oh,
So,
wow.
you can find things that have been out of circulation for a while, but are lurking back on some network that you don't know about and
That's right.
re-experience them. So, I mean, we're just trying to, and I'm probably going to be coming up with a list. We have a directory of historic hotels around the world. I'm probably going to have one of museums. We're pulling in different resources so that people can, and the other thing we have is travel discounts. And we have a travel service a concierge service that'll book you without any cost. So we're really trying to make it easy for people. We got a book swap. We've got a travel matching program. If you're looking for people to travel with, we've got a community. It's kind of like a Facebook, but it's not Facebook. um, I have a newsletter that goes out. So let's say that and the membership, by the way, is only like under $20 a month. But let's say that you don't want to do that and you just want to follow the blog. So get registered on our blog, updates and newsletter. It's at the bottom of our homepage. And I'll send you a list of the blogs you might have missed, the ones that are coming. I'll tell you the reminders of the meetings when you can come and join. But I'm also going to put in there a new book every other week that you've not heard about. And I'm going to give you news. Like some of the news is I had a archaeological dig going on in a Charleston a mansion. And the public was invited. So I'll tell you about those kinds of things. This last issue, I gave an entire menu of all the photo galleries in our gallery so that there are 35 individual photo galleries. If you love pictures of places, animals, landscapes, flowers, all kinds of the places that are in the blogs, if you miss the blogs, I've assembled it all there. Spotlights and all kinds of different things that will make you feel as if you experienced it. So this last issue had a list of all those 35 and a direct link into that gallery. So we're always
Uh,
looking for new cool stuff to bring to our readers and our members.
Wow.
oh,
I think that's pretty impressive. And I think, if you're a history buff and you love to travel, your place would be definitely the place to check into because I think there's so much information and I love how you say about movies and things like that because I'm constantly like watching a movie and I'm like, I think that's this place and then I'm Googling, where was this filmed? Right? Because it
I
is
do the same.
sometimes it's local and you're like, I know that that's somewhere local or I think that's, so it's always interesting to me just to see where some of these things are. So I love that you bring that in, especially when it's, international, not just local stuff. And I think
Yeah.
there's probably so many hidden things that we don't know that it's wonderful you're providing that information to people of these places to go and see and things to do and see when you're there, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Exactly.
And I post a blog every other day. But, if you really want a comprehensive, useful guide, I have one for you. It's an e-guide, and it's called 20 Great Historic Cities. Oh, 20 great international cities where you can immerse yourself in history and the books to read to make you feel as if you lived there. And so I've gone through all of those cities and I've been to every single one of them myself. And I've picked the historically significant things that you should see. So I'll give you a little history about the place so you have some context. And then here's all the things that you should hit on your history bucket list when you're in that market.
Wow, that's
So I want to tell people where they can get it. It's called, you can go to thehistorictraveler.com/guide. And again, that's thehistorictraveler.com/guide. So I encourage people to grab that. It's a great resource. And you can do it to plan a trip this summer, or you can just enjoy the reading, or you can figure out what are your bucket list cities when you start to read this.
Yeah, because I think the more like I have a few on my list, I have to say that are bucket list places that I'd like to go, but for what
Same.
I don't know why, but I love this because there's just so many different things and probably places I've never heard of, which I love because, this is where people like you come in handy when you've been to these places and you can tell us, well, here's the experience and here's, and then you're going and making your own, but you have this little guide to help you go there, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Well, and then you have the blog to give you other places. For example, I have the world's oldest continually operating hospital. I will be doing a blog eventually on a place called Roc Gigrac in France, where they built part of the city out of the hillside. There's another one that's very much like that. That's a religious shrine called Rocamadour. It's on the Mary Magdalene path. So I'm going to spotlight an individual little place that might be interesting. Or, for example, when you go to Arles, France, you can see if you've seen the picture that Van Gogh did of the bridge that's half opened, you can actually see that bridge. It's still there. When I tell you about Arles, I'll tell you about the bridge. So, lots of and of course, that was where Van Gogh cut off his ear. But what people don't know about Arles, for example, is it's a fabulous Roman city. You might know it about the beautiful light from the Impressionists, but it's got an intact Roman arena and a theater, both of them, some of the most well preserved that you're going to find.
Wow.
And for example, in the magazine, the Historic Traveler magazine, which half of it's dedicated to destinations, and always have an interview with somebody who is doing preservation or is a history expert, et cetera. The last one was on the man who saved all the lighthouses around America. And the second half is on books and media and all of that. But one of my spotlight articles in the magazine is on the 4 Roman arenas where you can still see a performance.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
a thousand,
That'd be fun.
2,000 years later, you can still see a bullfight or a concert or all of these other things. So I'm always looking for interesting, unique things. The second issue is going to have a spotlight on funiculars, these little things that'll take you up from the historic city down to the main city and back and forth. So, I mean, just fun things. I'm looking for great stories that just make you bring a smile to your face.
That is really cool. And so I have to ask the question, food. So does this give you well, I love that it gives you all these different experiences traveling. So like, do you find that you're just really adventurous when it comes to the food, or are you what, like I would be very like, ooh, what do I know on here?
Well, I talk only a tiny bit about food, like a real specialty meal that you should have there. I don't talk about restaurants and things like that unless it's a historic restaurant. And so the answer to your question is I look first for historic restaurant. And either whether it's there or not, I'll try at least one night to eat the local specialty. What is it they're famous for? There is a kind of a soup-like dish in Belgium called Watersvee, and it's particularly known for in Ghent. And so when I was in Ghent, I had Watersvee, and it's really yummy. It's got potatoes and all kinds of other fun things in it. And I'll tell you about that. Oh, well, for example, also when I was in Lucerne, um, one of the wild things, of course, Lucerne is cheese, and it's the home of
No.
fondue. So you have to have fondue when you're there one day. But one of the fun things that was so funny was in the morning I would come out. These most restaurants, most hotels have a breakfast buffet. Continental breakfast, and some are more elaborate than others. And in my Lucerne hotel, they had not for dinner, not for dessert, but for breakfast, a chocolate fondue fountain with
Wow.
marshmallows. So I'll tell you about that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I love that. I think that's great. And because that gives people, when they're looking forward to going to somewhere, to see the different things that they could experience there and to find the historic places. Because I know my son likes to travel when he can. And when he goes, he's very into like, what's the history of the place? And, where can I go? And he's often more talking to the local people to find some of those different things. So I will definitely be telling him about this because I think it's going to give him lots of more ideas about some different places to go that we don't think of every day.
Well, and we've got the US in there as well, not just, international. For example, right now, if you were to go to the blog, you'll find one on Breckenridge, Colorado. It's a quirky, fun little mountain town, and with lots of historic buildings that, where the storefronts are and funky signs and fun. And so you'll see a ton of pictures about Breckenridge.
Wonderful. Have you been, since we're from Canada, have you been to anywhere really cool in Canada?
Quebec City. Absolutely
Oh,
no doubt. It's one of my all-time favorite cities. And
people
tons of
there.
history there.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
there is.
And one of the books that I read and which is featured in that blog and in the magazine actually is Champlain's Dream. And it's all about the man who basically dreamed up what would become Quebec and Montreal and started those communities, back in fur trapper days before there was much in the way of, basically started French Canada.
Right. People. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and I love that. And I love to read, so I really love how you tie the two together and give that. So I think that's a really exciting for people to get that experience. So where's next on your list to travel to?
Egypt,
Oh, there's
absolutely next.
that.
And then after that, Turkey.
Okay.
But they just put the Hagia Sophia in scaffolding, and so I'm not going with my camera to shoot a beautiful mosque in scaffolding. So I'll pick that one next.
Yeah,
I'll hit Egypt first.
so are your pictures on you said your pictures are on the website as well?
Yes, the photo gallery. So when you
Okay.
come to the homepage in the lower left-hand corner, there's an entree to the photo gallery, and you'll either have a choice of just clicking through the gallery and perusing, or there'll be a menu there where you can pick the individual, whatever you're interested in.
Very.
And it keeps growing.
Yes.
After I do a blog and it's been on it's archived, I'll throw the pictures over there too. And there's still a number of things that I haven't gotten around to that I'm adding there. I made a list of about 7 more galleries that I want to get to when I have some time. And then as I travel, I'm going to be adding more stuff. And one of the things I do is I shoot a lot of things that are not historically oriented, beautiful landscapes and animals and people and all that other kinds of stuff. And so I don't have a place for that in the blog, but they're featured in the gallery.
Nice.
Okay.
Very nice. I like that. And I just really love this concept just of how you tie everything together. Like I know I've said that a couple of times, but my mind is just kind of blown with it because it's just like, you kind of put all my things that I love to do. I haven't traveled that much, but the thought of traveling and then reading these books and tying yourself into that place, I think is just an amazing experience. So I'm so excited that you're offering this to people and, you know,
Yeah.
giving them that
Thank you.
guide to go and see these different things.
Well, and I'll tell you something else too. We know that not everybody who's going to hear this is themselves a history-centric person, but they might have a relative or a friend or a girlfriend or husband or wife. And so we actually created gift certificates as well.
Nice.
So, because we just think that this is something that it has to find the right person, but everybody knows somebody that loves history and probably loves
That's right.
historic travel.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they probably like historic novels.
Exactly. That is so, so, so true. And I think too with oh, I lost my train of thought. Oh goodness. I think too with like the way that you have it set out too in these different categories that you have, like where you're bringing in museums and you're bringing in like it lends to a lot of different people. As opposed to, like you're not just going there and it's just like, oh, I just want to see this particular thing. You can kind of
Right.
go, well, I really am interested in museums. I think museums are super cool and that's something I want to check out. and where can I go around the world or locally and check these things out.
Mhm.
I think that's an interesting idea to do it that way.
So the magazine, for example, has categories, secondary, so beyond the cover story on a great destination, and then there's one that's American byways. So I always do an American destination as well. Then there are things like Grand Manors. The first one was a Biltmore in North Carolina. Then there are houses of worship. Then there is adaptive reuse, someplace that was something before, and now it's being reused as a hotel, a library or a bookstore. We'll also have features on, well, the Q&A. With the whoever the leader is, the spotlight on something fun and funky, like I was telling you, the funiculars and the arenas. But we also, I'll feature something on a king that you may, or king or queen that you may not know about, and because they stand out because of how they really made history. But then I have a quiz, and it's called Royal Roulette. And I give you like 10 or 12 questions about various different rulers, and you have to come up with the answers, but you're going to be really surprised at some of those questions and answers. That is a fun quiz. We also have a crossword puzzle at the end of the media section. So, and then I do a television review. And then the books, I do one series that I love. The second thing is a book that is about somebody who actually lived, but it's fictionalized. Then I'll give you a nonfiction book, a real factual recitations of somebody's life. And then I'm going to feature a older uh, author that people today may not know about because they're younger and they don't know about the Mitchners and the Urises and Irving Stone and some of these people who wrote brilliant historic novels that only like Ken Follett and Philippa Gregory and Tony Riches are doing today. And so I'll take you back to books you might have missed that you might want to read. And then we'll do a TV review. And, so we wrap it all up with really great different pockets of information, whatever your interest is.
That's very cool. So what would be one of your favorite old authors that nobody hasn't heard probably in this genre or like this age?
Um, well, I definitely love Irving Stone's biographies of various different people. I love Leon Uris's novels. He had some great Trinity and Exodus. James Michener's. Michener can be hard for some people to get through because they are very thick and they go through, minutia history about a place. But boy, talk about education. The source is about, what was Megiddo in Israel. Which is fascinating. What city that was built on top of cities and the cultures that grew with that. Those are some of my favorite. I particularly like books about people who actually lived, and you have a perspective on their lives and a lot of stuff you wouldn't know about them until you dug into a historic novel like this.
Right.
I did one on it. There's a book by Weiss that most people don't know. It disappeared very quickly about Rodin, the sculptor Rodin. And if you've been to Paris, you've seen, and he was the one that did The Thinker. Um, and so, he was the struggle that he went to through his creative process. Uh, you know, um, Irving Stone's book on Michelangelo, The Agony and the Ecstasy. So those kinds of books are really fascinating.
I love that. Well, I just think it's just interesting, and I hope everybody goes and checks out your website and your
Yes.
magazine because I think it just sounds like it's an interesting thing. Be a great magazine to take on a flight somewhere because there's so much
Yeah.
to do and read in there.
I remembered another one that a lot of people don't know about. Gore Vidal wrote some great novels, Lincoln and 1776 and some of these others. Yeah. Gore Vidal was also another great writer,
Yeah,
historic writer.
There's so
I mean,
many.
he was famous for a lot of other things, but his historic novels were very good.
Which is wonderful. So do you in your books or in your magazines, like do you have maps of these places? Like when people are going there to sort of know where they are when you get there, or is that like you got to buy a map? Well, now we
Yeah,
don't,
you
right?
probably have to buy a map, but I do recommend some things. We do put at the bottom of each blog a Viator tour, one or two, which are like in-city tours. They're relatively inexpensive, and they're either walking tours or bus tours or hop on, hop off tours. So that, that's a great starting point. I won't give you the map, but these kinds of tours will be a great place to get going on those things.
That's
And
great.
they'll cite and these tours specifically will cite the kinds of things that I have in the blog.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense. No, and I think that's perfect because honestly, nowadays we have our phones and we can find just about anywhere we're really.
We actually have a map on the website that maps where all the blogs are. So
Oh,
you can
cool.
even go to the map and say, "Oh, I really want to go to Croatia," and you'll see, and oh, there's the Croatia on Dubrovnik or Zagreb. So,
That's very
and
interesting.
you can search. You can also search using, keywords.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that is, I love it. I love the concept all the way around. Just because it ties into my passion of reading, I think is the big thing for me. I love history. I love finding out about places and how they came to be and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's inspirational for people when they're setting on their path to do these different things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Well, it's
welcome.
so much fun to think, I try to make sure that the blog covers different areas. I don't want it ever, to get boring. So I cover different continents, different countries. So it makes sure that there's always something new and different. And I'm going to keep you guessing.
I love that. And I'm sure by the people that you talk to and the places that you go, it probably inspires different places to go and different things to look into and find these stories and find these books and movies. And like, I think it's so well rounded. So that's amazing.
One of the things that I love is I did a blog that got very good response on the three favorite libraries, historic libraries, which I really want to see a lot more of them. But one is at Trinity College in Ireland, in Dublin. One of them is in Prague, the Clementium, which is probably the most beautiful library I have ever seen. And then the
Wow.
other one is the J.P. Morgan Museum uh, in New York City, where they have one of the largest amazing collections of historic texts. What's really interesting about that is there's a fabulous book that was a bestseller about a year or two ago that I highly recommend, and it's called Personal Librarian. It's about the woman, again, it's fictionalized, but it's true story, about the woman that JP Morgan hired to do all the collections for that library. And she became the most powerful corporate woman in America because, at that time she controlled the purse that no other woman in America did, or even in the world at this point, except a ruler.
Mm.
And what people didn't know is that she was Black passing as white, and that she spent her life in fear of being discovered that of her ethnicity. And it was
Oh,
only
wow.
discovered in 1999 when a researcher was doing a book on him and found her birth certificate and saw that it said colored.
Wow, that's cool. I love that.
That is.
I'll have to read that book. Haven't read that one. To be read. I love that. And I love that they hide these history stories in these books, right? That are fiction. And that's amazing to me how they do that. And then, you know, pieces come out. Like I said, I think there's always a thread of truth in some of these fiction books, especially when they deal with people or places or what have you.
Well,
So,
and these novelists go to great extent to do the research. And as I was just saying to Tony Riches in our interview today, I said, "You've done the research for me. I'm piggybacking on you when I'm reading this." But they take such pride in finding original words and letters and going to the places where these things happen and describing exactly what the circumstances are. So why not take advantage of their brilliance of tying together the story with a little extra dialogue?
yeah, absolutely. And I love that you spoke about the libraries because that's a huge thing for me. And that is something that I would like to, like, that is something that would attract me to go to if I was traveling somewhere, Europe or somewhere, would be libraries, churches. I'm not going to lie, just because they're so beautiful.
Mhm.
They're so old and there's so much history in there. And I think that's just phenomenal. So I love that you cover these different things of where, would excite people to go and experience that for themselves.
Yeah.
If you ever get
I
a
know.
chance to go to Chartres in France to see the cathedral there, it is an extraordinary cathedral. It has some of the most beautiful stained glass in the world and some of the most. It also has this screen that's been molded in sculptured of the life of Christ all around the backside of the altar. That is
Wow.
just amazing, and it has a labyrinth right in it.
Oh,
All of
wow.
Wow.
that. It was a pilgrimage site because supposedly it had the chemise of Mary in it. So they have a shrine to that. But people came from all over the world, and it's an extraordinary church. And there's a feature magazine article on it, and then I'll also pop it into the blog in a couple of months. So
Oh, wonderful.
Wow.
Well, this
and
has
you'll
been
get to see the
so
pictures.
you I'm totally going to check them out because you've
Let's
just
go look
been
at the picture.
so excited. Sorry, Mom, go. Would you say?
No, I said I really have to look at the picture. I did travel to it in Canada. So,
Yeah, and I'm looking
so
forward to looking at your site and seeing these pictures and joining your blog because I just think it's very exciting. And, I'm so excited for you that this is kind of like a dream come true for you. So, you know, that's amazing. And we really do appreciate you being on the show with us. So, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. Well, the first thing is you can find me on all different social media as well. You can find me at LinkedIn and Facebook, but you can also find the Historic Traveler on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And then come to our website, thehistorictraveler.com. Take advantage of the guide, thehistorictraveler.com/guide. And if you just want to connect with me, send me an email at Jackie@thehistorictraveler.com.
That is wonderful.
nice.
Well, we will throw all of that into our show notes for everybody. And so, if you had a final word to leave to all of our followers, what would it be?
Travel to fill your heart and read before you go so that you can be an informed traveler who can appreciate the people you meet and what they and their country have been through.
Yes. Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you again for being on with us. We hope you'll come back as you journey around and you have more stories to share with us. And maybe we can, even delve into certain cities or places and you can fill us all in. We'd love that just to learn some more about, this wonderful world that we live in and, you know, just bring that positivity to the world. So thank you for joining us, Jackie. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. Very much so. Very,
It's been a delight to be with both you, Kim and Barb, to be here with both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And
thank
everybody
you.
else? We will see you the next time.
Excuse me, one stop. So, and
I hear
I'll
you.
finish with that. Who, excuse me.